Good evening, everybody. Welcome to El Diálogo Latino. Today, please join me in welcoming the Prince George's County Latino Affairs Liaison, Ms. Samantha Howard. Samantha, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me here today. It's definitely my pleasure to be here.
To kind of get ourselves off the ground here a little bit, tell us a little bit about your background, sort of the work that you've done, how you got to this role in the community.
So I'm originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I came here in the middle of my senior year of high school, specifically to Prince George's County. And so I am a product of Prince George's County Public Schools. I then ended up working in education at Prince George's Community College, and I was there for 19 years. Really enjoyed my time there. I focused on Hispanic and Latino recruitment. But as you know, when you're working with populations that struggle to have other needs, right? I spent a lot of my time finding resources for students to be able to thrive in the educational environment. And I work with special populations like foster youth, teen parents, students with disabilities, veterans, and it gave me a real understanding of what was happening in our communities here in Prince George's County. And so I was doing that for a very long time, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then this opportunity came out of nowhere, and I saw it as an opportunity to do the same work, but on a bigger scale, and to be able to touch all categories, whether it's public safety or health, education, to serve our people better.
Well, 19 plus years is a lot of time, for sure. Why? What keeps you motivated in, sort of doing this effort with the community?
I think for me, what keeps me motivated is I see it as an opportunity to get some of the things that I didn't have growing up, right? I grew up with a lot of family love and a big family, but I was first generation, finishing school. I didn't have a ton of mentors in terms of like career mentors or even educational mentors. It was just kind of like you graduated high school and hooray, you're done, you go to work. And I had bigger dreams, right? But I didn't know how to get there. And I struggled, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I, stumbled along the way, took some, some paths that didn't really lead to anything. And I could have used someone to say, hey, here are the resources, or here's this lead, or here's this opportunity, take advantage of it. And so I want to be that for our community. I want to say, hey, here are the resources, here's where you can access them, and empower them to pursue their dreams.
So to sort of kind of get a little bit of a understanding on that, so with the Latino Affairs Office, you're essentially the connecting bridge in Prince George's County?
Yes, so the Latino Affairs Liaison works in hand with the county government and the community. And my job is to liaison between the two entities, right? Expressing to the county government, here are the needs of our community, here are the nuances of our community, here are the different aspects of such a diverse community, because it's not, just because it's Hispanic or Latino, all nations aren't the same. Right? Everybody has different needs. And not just that, even geographically, our North County Latinos have different needs than our South County Latinos, right? So,
really?
Yes, because there's more services and more access in North County, because historically that's where the Latino population has been. But now South County is experiencing rapid growth of Latino residents. And so there aren't as many services in Spanish, or there aren't as many even like community opportunities within South County. So trying to bring those opportunities to South County is important. So being connected with the community and staying very connected one-on-one with the community, hearing what the community has to say, hearing the needs, and then being able to translate that into what are the policies and the programs and the offerings and how we deliver services as a government organization, and how we do that.
Oh, that's a huge responsibility right there. Mm-hmm. I mean, in doing that work, what are some of the main challenges, that you're seeing right now in Prince George's County, north and south side apart, like just in general, what are you seeing with the community that, you want to sort of take initiative on right now?
Yeah. The biggest barrier I see in our community is just lacking the access to the information, whether it's that the information is out there, but it's not reaching its intended target. Things that may be a little more nuanced, right? So let's take, for example, our Guatemalan brothers and sisters. Some of them don't speak Spanish. Some of them speak indigenous languages, right? So we're translating things into Spanish, which is wonderful. It's a great initiative. It's really good, but we're losing a segment of the population that speaks indigenous languages. And how do we become proactive in that sense? How do we connect with a community that may feel isolated, right? I know that our school system is doing a really good job with their interpretation services to now have on, people who speak indigenous languages and outreaching to those communities, as well as the community not being as engaged as we would like, but that takes trust building. And so over the past year of being in this role, that's what I've focused on, is creating trust with our communities, north, south, seeing where the gaps are, and saying how can we funnel services to these areas in a culturally appropriate way.
In trying to funnel those services, are there any special initiatives that you might be taking to sort of really connect with the community? Because it seems like you're doing a lot of very grassroots stuff here to really connect with everybody, and kind of sort of delivering that in a neat package to the government. What are you doing to really engage and really get that deep connection from the constituents?
So we started last year with the Latino Advisory Board, and so we have 14 members of the community that go across different stakeholder categories. So we're talking public safety, education, disability, veterans, small business owners, you name it, housing, so many different categories. Yeah, a little bit of everything, because we want to make sure we touch all topics, And so those 14 members all come with their own networks and their own resources and their own thoughts and their own connections to the community. So bringing all of that together gives us a bigger picture. We're not just seeing one picture, we're seeing a wider, bigger picture of what's going on in our community. From there, we have tried to leverage our social media platforms, but also where people are. So we're in several WhatsApp groups, which is where our community moves, right? And we want to meet people where they are. Of course, all of our content comes out in English and in Spanish, primarily in Spanish. People can use the translate button for English. And so we try to push out as much information, not just our own information, but sharing the information of our trusted community partners as well. And then the most recent is our newsletter. So we have Conexión Comunitaria, which is a Spanish language newsletter that we put out twice a month. But during Hispanic Heritage Month, we put it out every week. And this includes things like resources, events, initiatives that are coming out. And through the newsletter, we've been able to also advertise for volunteers. And so now we have a volunteer group, which we're calling them portavoces, people that can help us stay connected. Because in Prince George's County, it's almost 1 million residents. And out of those 1 million residents, it's over 250,000 residents that are Latino. So it's a very, very big segment of the population. And, we're a small team, but we are growing, and that's important for us. And so being able to have all of these people and all of these hands on deck that are involved in the same mission is helping us to get more information out into the community, as well as to have more information from the community be brought in.
That's amazing. I mean, with this newsletter that you're putting out, it seems like it's a very central resource to kind of get connected with the Latino Affairs Office. Where can constituents reach out to get it, to see it, to kind of access those resources?
So it's always available on PGC Latino Affairs, which is our social media platform, and we're on Facebook and Instagram right now. We also share it. I do have a radio show, which is also called Conexión Comunitarias on Radio America. It's every second and fourth. Thank you. It's every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, and we cover a variety of topics, from resources to Latino identity too, because there are a lot of topics that sometimes as communities we don't discuss, things like mental health, things like the Afro-Latino identity, different topics that sometimes we don't embrace as communities. And so it gives us a safe space to do that and to educate ourselves, como para abrir mente, right? That's what we say. So it's a really good platform. So always on our social media platforms, they can always email us to at Latino Affairs, and this is pretty long, at co.pg.md.us.
Awesome.
All right, and so they can reach us that way. And just even if they see us at events, we're constantly at events in the community. We do stay very connected to community, and approach us. Come, we're very friendly. Our team is very friendly, so I'm really happy about that. Our board members are very welcoming as well. So if you ever see us anywhere, please connect with us.
Again, it seems like you're doing a lot everywhere in the community. From all these things, what do you feel you're most passionate about and really ensuring for the future of the Latino community of Prince George's County?
I think the thing that I'm most passionate about is collaboration. I think that as a people, we do well to collaborate with each other. We do well to organize. We do well to come together and share our resources amongst ourselves and with others. It's very, very important. It's good to take care of self, right? Because that's important, right? We should take care of ourselves, we should take care of our home, but it's also good to take care of our brothers and sisters, right? And the people around us. And the more that we're able to share information and share resources, that is going to strengthen our communities. If you have a good outcome, if you go somewhere and you get a resource and you have a good outcome, share that. In our community, sometimes there's a lot of misinformation, and we want to make sure that we're correcting that and that we're telling people, no, go over here and make sure you can get the information that you need here, and helping people find the right place for the right needs for the needs that they have.
I mean, I completely sympathize with that idea that there's such a big need for collaboration. Not only in Prince George's County, but just in the state with the Latino community. There's definitely a lot that needs to be done to make sure we are all having access to the resources we need. We talked about, I guess, sort of the online aspect of this. Now let's talk a little bit more in person. What are some of the events that we can expect from the Prince George's County Latino Affairs Office?
So I don't think we have that much time, because we do have a lot of events, which, like I said, we do post on our social media platforms. For Hispanic Heritage Month, of course, we have the Latino Festival, which is on Sunday, the 15th in Langley Park. And we have a ton of Hispanic Heritage Month events, but a big event that we have coming up is the Financial Empowerment and kind of Economic Development Summit that we have with Maryland Latinos Unidos, and that'll be in Prince George's County. It's October 1st at Prince George's Community College. And that is going to be a very good, and it goes to what you were saying about our statewide conversations. We are very interested in partnering with our neighboring counties, whether it's Montgomery County, Anne Arundel, to even Howard County. We've been speaking with Howard County to share best practices, right? To collaborate with each other. A lot of our service providers serve in multiple counties. So seeing what are the models, how is it working, sharing those opportunities. And I've been very, very blessed to be able to collaborate with other liaisons or directors that do the same role in other counties. So being able to kind of share that work, and I think that this next statewide conversation is going to be really important, because the ultimate goal, right, is for us to have a good quality of life, right? And money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you options, right?
There you go.
So we want our people to be able to create not just wealth for themselves, but generational wealth, so that our future generations too can advance here in the state of Maryland, and of course in Prince George's County as well.
No, that's great. I mean, again, a lot of the times, we have the conversation about the failure of there being access to, financial literacy. Which is very much needed across the state, and in everything that you're saying right now, we talk about the need for partnership between the different counties. We need the relationship between the leaders. I want to talk a little bit more about an event, a program that you did with Maryland Latinos Unidos for different leaders of the state, to kind of empower them and give them a safe space to grow. Can you tell me a little bit about your thought process in sort of developing something like that for the county?
I was so excited when Dr. Lemos approached me about this leadership series. So she conducted a leadership series, which was over 5 sessions with rising and current leaders of Prince George's County. This was a first of its kind. It had never been done in Prince George's County, and immediately there was so much demand. So many people signed up. We couldn't fill. We filled the first cohort, and I guess maybe I'm speaking a little too soon, but there is a second cohort coming, so that is coming up. And so we were able to have, I believe it was 40 participants in the group. I know over 70 signed up, so that was amazing. But that just shows the need and kind of like the demand and the hunger for this type of initiative. During that time, we were able to create community. We were able to receive training and resources on how to lead, right? And many of us are already doing it. But when you think about it, people who are pioneers, right? People who maybe be the first time that they're in this role, or there maybe wasn't a Latino before them, which in a lot of cases is where we find ourselves, right? Maybe somebody wasn't before me, or maybe I'm new to this role. This was a real opportunity to get that training and that mentorship component and just be able to be among like minds. I absolutely enjoyed that. And I'm still staying in contact with many of the people who are in the session, and it has been really good. And I'm looking forward to the second cohort.
That's wonderful. You truly are doing a lot of work for Prince George's County, and thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Continuing on, talking a lot about all the work that you're doing in Prince George's County, we kind of want to understand a little bit more about what you envision the future of the Latino Affairs Office to look like. How do you see it looking in 5-10 years for the Latino community in Prince George's County?
I would love to see our office grow. Of course, it is a huge population, 250,000 residents. We do need a few more people on deck, I would assume. But I also want to see further engagement with the community, further trust building. I want our community to be able to feel as though they have a champion and feel as though they have a place to turn to on a wider scale. Just continue to grow that trust, and to see us as of right now, we're becoming more involved on the policy side. So whether that's joining task force or being so currently, like I'm on the opioid abatement task force, on the Cabinet for Children, and several other on the continuum of care for homelessness, all of these topics that touch our community and that sometimes touch our community disproportionately, right? So being able to have a seat at so many of these different tables is very, very important. So when these policies are rolling out, the Latino community is in mind, the nuances of the community are thought of, and they can be rolled out in a culturally appropriate way for our community. So continuing to advocate for our community, as well as being a responsive government.
Again, it's truly important, to make sure that the Latino community is indeed having, a seat in the table of decision. I want to say there's a delegate that says, if you're not in the seat, of decision, you're in the menu that's getting eaten. Again, when it comes to sort of the policy side of things, how does that sort of work for you guys? With the Latino Affairs Office, sort of how do you balance the, your interactions between state government, county government, is there any interaction with municipal government as well? How does that sort of all work together?
So it's a delicate balance, to be sure. But we do have a municipalities liaison, which I get to work very closely with, that is constantly saying, oh, let's be a part of this activity. I've met with several of the mayors who have growing populations in their area and are proactively reaching out and saying, hey, how can we connect with the Latino community, and educating themselves. And I love that. I love that because there's now a place that they can turn to. They can turn to Latino Affairs and say, hey, how does this work? What does this look like? And they can do it and not feel uncomfortable about it. It's a safe space. Recently, along with the municipalities liaison, we hosted a training for municipalities on cultural sensitivity. And it was very well attended. Many of the mayors came, and it was done by Coaching Salud Holística, and they have a lot of data and a lot of information on culturally sensitive services. This was very eye-opening for a lot of our municipalities, and they've taken that back. So when they're creating programming or when they're trying to engage with the Latino community, they're more aware, more educated, and a little more mindful and intentional about how they interface with the community.
In your work, sort of being that bridge between the community, the governments, also working with, there are other levels of government as well. Where do you think there is the most need to sort of address the existence of resources for the Latino community? Where do we have to really focus on to say, hey, this is where we need to really bring in more of the information, sort of highlight that this is where we need to work?
I think that's a difficult question because there are so many different needs. And if I had to pick something, I think that we should focus on our school systems, and we should focus on how we interface with families, especially Latino families, in the school system. Because while we're 20% of the population in Prince George's County, we're 40% of the school system. And so our population is very young, and our population is being guided by parents who sometimes don't have the resources. And that is leading to other things, right? We all know that the pandemic was very hard, not just in terms of the disease, right, and what was going with COVID, but also the mental health effects of that. And in all honesty, it is 2024, but we are just coming out of that. And a lot of people are just starting to do things in person or starting to feel the effects of what has happened during that time. And that is mental health, and that is the lack of resources that people face, and that is rebounding from maybe job loss, life loss, a lot of different things that have happened during that time, and people are just now beginning to process that. And that causes other things, whether it's drug addiction, substance abuse, mental health crises that our children are experiencing, and parents, which I've talked to so many parents who feel like they don't know what to do. This is all new for them, and they don't have the resources, and maybe they don't have access to mental health services, or maybe they're not even at the point where they think that that's what's going to help, right? And that's another maybe cultural aspect, right? In many of our countries, seeking mental health services isn't a thing, right? So how do we educate communities on that? How do we give them resources without making them feel uncomfortable or without making them feel like they're incapable of taking care of their children, because they are, and they love their children. And so if we could find a more holistic way of approaching, and school systems are captive audiences, right? We're in the schoolhouses. I think it would fix a lot of the issues that we say our community has, right? So being able to provide those mental health resources, being able to work collaboratively with parents, but you have to create an environment where parents can feel comfortable coming in. And whether that's a language barrier, or whether that's a cultural connection, or whether they would rather speak with someone who is from their own country, or speak with someone who's Latino that can understand them culturally, looking at all those things. I think that the biggest impact would probably occur there. But there are so many other topics too, whether it's business owners. We have the highest, amount of business owners, growing businesses are our Latinos here, not just in Prince George's County, but in the state of Maryland, So how do we support them? How do we support the dreams that they have of owning businesses, of getting contracts, of, contributing to our economy here? So there's a lot of different topics, and I hope that in my time, however long that may be, that I'm able to touch every one of those topics with our community.
Going a little bit more on the topic of students, how are you seeing is going to be, sort of the best way to engage them in this work? I mean, again, it seems like you want to touch so much in the Latino Affairs Office, how do you think you can really engage these students that are, also being affected by a lot of these issues?
I think that it has to be done in a family unit. I think that sometimes students have hopes and aspirations, and they may not have the support at home because maybe the parent doesn't understand, or the parent is fearful, or maybe there's a taboo around the topic that they may be wanting to address. So being able to engage families, and that goes back to trust. You have to build trust within your schoolhouses. You have to build an environment. We see some schoolhouses that are doing it right, that they have high Latino parent population engagement, right? And then we see some schools that maybe aren't doing it so well. And let's look at what the difference is. Is it that one school is creating a better environment? Is it that there are other resources that are needed? What is it, right? When I first started at Prince George's Community College, there was this narrative around Latinos didn't value education. And I found that to be nothing but further from the truth. Right. Latinos did value education. They just didn't know how to access it. You put the burden on a student who's coming in, right? They're coming from high school. They don't know what the higher education system is. They're learning all of those things. And then what? They have to now translate that into Spanish and convince the parent, because the parent doesn't have access to that information. Exactly. So something simple as translating these documents or having Spanish-speaking recruiters that can explain the process so they can go through that learning curve together, because we know that we make decisions as family units. Absolutely. Once that was able to be established, and that Latino families, they would bring their cousins, they would bring their neighbors, they would, hey, go talk to Samantha, and that created a pipeline. So I see it very similar in other areas, and once you have those good outcomes, how do we replicate that in other segments of our community?
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, in higher education, for example, we have issues such as, filling out FAFSA. I mean, how has that looked for Prince George's County? Especially this year, that there were a lot of hiccups, with what was, the FAFSA for a lot of students that, may be in mixed status families. How did that look like for Prince George's County?
I know that it has been an issue with the FAFSA, and I know that it continues to be. It hasn't been resolved yet. It's not something where everybody has gotten their responses back. That was a FAFSA issue. I don't know. I think that it's going to have a ramification for a lot of families, and it's going to unfortunately leave a few families behind in terms of the FAFSA issue. I know that specifically for Prince George's Community College, just because of my connection, there are other opportunities, in terms of like foundation scholarships and things like that, and how do we funnel families into that space. And I know that they've been at least trying to be very responsive in terms of here's the new information that we have, and anytime that there's new information, we're trying to get it out into the community. We're very fortunate that on our board, our co-chair, Joel Solazano, works with the University of Maryland Educational Opportunity Center, and he is constantly giving us information and helping our students get through the process in English and in Spanish, whatever language they need, as well as working with families as they're doing it. So that is the beauty of having a board that is so well connected and has so much information. We're able to get that information as soon as we have it, as soon as it comes out, we're able to share it out with the community. I'm hopeful that once FAFSA issues are resolved, we can get more families through it and back on track.
This has been such a big issue statewide. Yeah. So there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. Additionally, a lot of places like Prince George's Community College, we know offer, English and GED classes for these parents as well. So it's not only the student going to community college, but it's also the parent as well. What are some of the things that, the Latino Affairs Office in Prince George's County is seeing regarding, the involvement of these parents as well in education?
So we are seeing a lot more parents asking questions. What is this? What about that? And also seeing opportunities for themselves. And I know that, as a parent, right? Sometimes we pour ourselves into our children and we forget sometimes of ourselves, right? And I think that if we can encourage parents, it's not too late. You can go to school, you can learn English, you can do these things, and how that will have a ripple effect on their families. How it also motivates their children. I think that's very important. As someone who completed their college degree later in life, it did motivate my children. And I was happy to do it because I understood that number one, I needed to finish what I started, right? And that number two, I couldn't expect things from my children that I wasn't willing to do myself. And so I wanted to lead by example and complete that so that they would be motivated. And so far, 1 down, 3 to go. I have 1 graduating this year again too, so it'll be 2 down, 2 to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But it's very important that as parents we see opportunities for ourselves as well, and that investment that we take into developing ourselves will also in turn benefit our families.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, again, thank you again for all the work that you're doing in our communities. As a final message to kind of wrap things up, what's something that you would want to, I guess, say to the Latino community as a whole, in Prince George's County, something to, I guess, motivate them in the work that you do, and something that aligns with the values of the Latino Affairs Office?
I think that my message is engage. engage. If it's an event, come out. If it's a committee that you want to join it. Don't worry about the language barrier. Don't worry about whether you think this is for you or not. Every space in the government is for us, is for Latinos.
Absolutely.
So, sé parte de la solución, sé parte de lo que estamos tratando de hacer. Conéctese con nosotros, comuníquese con nosotros. No sienta pena ni sienta que el espacio no es para ustedes. El espacio también es para ustedes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Samantha, so much for being here with us today. I truly appreciate you, and we wish you a happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you.